It may be that his medical training, as well as his personality, has been a factor in shaping a political style that brooks no opposition to his diagnoses and prescriptions. His sense of rectitude, in telling Malaysians that they should swallow the equivalent of so many pills a day in their own interest, conjures up the image of medical infallibility translated to politics.
Throughout his political career, Dr. Mahathir behaved as the ever-diligent medical doctor, constantly studying the symptoms to diagnose the cause of the ills in his community and country, before proceeding to prescribe the correct treatment to restore good health.
Dr. Mahathir performed a series of political surgical operations in the party and government. Initially, he injected a so-called anesthetic in order to damage Musa Hitam's strength in the cabinet.
The result of the 13th general election in May 2013 turned Najib's leadership dream into a nightmare. He performed worse than Abdullah. Despite winning the election, more seats were lost to the opposition. Najib blamed everything, including the Chinese and the opposition, but himself. Dr. Mahathir had seen more alarming signs of Najib's weak leadership. His concern over Najib's ability increased to the next level. Although he maintained his support towards UMNO and the ruling party, Barisan Nasional, his confidence in Najib's leadership had declined further. For Dr. Mahathir, the 13th general election result was the most crucial indication of serious decline in the country and the party's leadership. Since then, his blog writings had shown more inclination to discuss the country and party's leadership issues. In particular, Najib's leadership and its impact on the country's future direction. As an elder statesman, Dr. Mahathir could not stay silent. He ignored all criticisms directed towards him and continued to observe closely Najib's leadership. This extract could best serve as a problem scenario for our leadership learning simulation. The 13th general election result was never left out from his radar. Najib's poor performance, in fact worse than Abdullah Badawi, became his major focus. Abdullah managed to win 140 out of 222 parliamentary seats with 51.39% of popular vote, whereas Najib could only win 133 parliamentary seats with 47.38% popular vote. MCA, Barisan Nasional Chinese Coalition Party, suffered a major loss, losing 8 more seats, while DAP, a Chinese-dominated opposition party, added 10 more seats as compared to the 12th general election. It was a clear sign of a Chinese voting tsunami towards the opposition. Yet, this result came after a long articulated One Malaysia plan and huge spending on BRIM or Bring Cash handouts. This problem scenario is used by Dr. Mahathir to further understand the country's leadership direction after the 13th general election. Based on this problem trigger, we could list down some brief explanation on the diagnostic process understood further through Dr. Mahathir's writing in his Check That web blog from 2013 onwards. To understand clearly Dr. Mahathir's diagnostic process, we have to break down the process into 4 sub-diagnostic processes, namely facts, ideas, learning issues, and action plan. Based on the problem trigger, there are at least 4 main facts discovered throughout Dr. Mahathir's writing in Check That web blog between May to December 2013. Fact number 1, Najib's performance was worse than Abdullah. Fact number 2, since 2011, Najib had worked hard through his One Malaysia concept. Fact number 3, Najib has spent more money through various channels, especially BRIM, since 2012. Fact number 4, people were unaffected by Najib's efforts and plans. Based on the identified facts, we could further describe Dr. Mahathir's diagnostic process through ideas generation. The result of the 13th general election is supposed to be a shocking result, since Najib had shown his hard works but failed to deliver. His One Malaysia project was articulately planned and delivered, so much so people seem to see how unique he is as compared to Abdullah. The concept should attract the Chinese to return their support towards the ruling party. Another important point was Najib, through One Malaysia concept, had also delivered a massive cash handouts project called Bantuan Rakyat Satu Malaysia, or BRIM, since 2012. Considering a huge amount of money spent on this project, voters, especially on the fence voters and Chinese lower income voters, should vote for Barisan Nasional. Unfortunately, the project seemed to affect only the lower income voters among the Malays. This is the brief result of idea generation. Fact number 1, Najib's performance was worse than Abdullah. The idea is, if Abdullah was known for his weak leadership, Najib leadership must be weaker than Abdullah. Fact number 2, since 2011, Najib had worked hard through his One Malaysia concept. The idea is that the One Malaysia concept could not bring back Chinese votes. Fact number 3, Najib had spent more money through various channels, especially BRIM, since 2012. The idea is BRIM was not effective to attract the fence voters or change people's mind. It could only make existing supporters happier. Fact number 4, people were unaffected by Najib's effort and plans. The idea is that there must be more crucial factors and fundamental issues that need to be considered, such as UMNO and country's leadership, party's direction, money politics, corruption, people's standard of living, and etc. The next diagnostic process is the identification of learning issues based on the ideas generated. Analysis of Dr. Mahathir's writing in his chat web blog between January to December 2014 discovered some important points related to the diagnostic process. From there on, we could understand the most important learning issues of Dr. Mahathir's problem-based learning journey. Between January and February 2014, he shared his concern over the ringgit depreciation and the importance of protecting the multi-ethnic power sharing concept. The first concern is related to Najib's leadership ability to manage the country's economy. The second concern is related to Najib's leadership ability to maintain the country's multi-ethnic power sharing concept. His ability to bring back the Chinese support to Barisan Nasional, since the desertion of their support in the 13th general election. This is not only detrimental to the survival of the ruling party, but also the survival of the country's multi-ethnic power sharing. It was an alarming sign for the losing ground of this sharing concept. In March 2014, Dr. Mahathir questioned, do we really need BRIM? Even without BRIM, there was good support from the people. If they do not support, it must be because they are not happy with something, maybe even with BRIM. Find out what they are not happy with and you will know what you should do. I am a supporter of the government. I work hard to help the party in the last election, but I must admit that I disagree with quite a few things the government is doing. This is a significant statement directly related to Najib's leadership initiative to draw support from the people through cash handouts. From Dr. Mahathir's perspective, Najib was misled and he should find another way to deal with the losing support from the people at large. In May 2014, Dr. Mahathir began to look at the possibilities of power corruption among the elected leaders. For him, Malaysia is a democratic country protected not only by people's will demonstrated through the ballot box, but also our constitutional monarchy system. Elected leaders should not think that absolute power rests with them whenever they manage to win the election. Dr. Mahathir wrote, no one should for any reason think that absolute power rests with them and that parliamentary democracy and constitutional monarchy can be ignored. Between June to August 2014, more Najib's destructive decisions pointing towards the creation of absolute power came to Dr. Mahathir's attention. It was a disturbing situation for the country's leadership. Najib's decision to propose bills that detrimental to the existing of National Economic Plan, National Economic Policies (NEP) or DEP initiative worried Dr. Mahathir. China huge projects in Johor Bahru and Lahad Datu incursion in early 2013 are two good examples of a weak country's leadership to oversee the foreign threats both in economic and border security sectors. Between September and December 2014, 1MDB problems came to the surface and began to draw Dr. Mahathir's attention. He knew for quite some time about the problems facing this government debt-ridden company. But what he could not understand why the company decided to enter into more risky business and paid a higher market price to buy 3 power stations. Then it came to his knowledge that the company had overpaid Goldman Sachs for the fundraising. Najib's administration seemed to sweep 1MDB problems under the rug. This might be the main reason why Dr. Mahathir continued to dig further to find its connection with the poor state of the country's leadership. In November 2014, he observed Najib's excessive borrowing and unwise spending through 1MDB and BRIM. Then Najib's undemocratic leadership in UMNO. By that time, he could not stand silent anymore. He urged UMNO members to send a stronger message to UMNO leadership to reform the party. By the end of 2014, more Najib destructive decisions regarding the signing of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement or TPPA and hiding the unpleasant 1MDB problems drove Dr. Mahathir to keep digging and exposing. Based on the above discussion, we could identify some of the most important learning issues, i.e. the list of questions directed towards further learning exploration to understand the country's leadership direction under Najib's administration.
He was totally responsible for 1MDB. Nothing can be done without his signature, and we have his signature on all the deals entered into 1MDB. Therefore, he is responsible. We have the checks, we have the letters signed by him, so he cannot say that I had nothing to do with it. Well, embezzlement, stealing government money, losing government money, and a number of other charges. Using government money to bribe, all those things.
I didn't benefit from the 1MDB because I believe that the 1MDB was, created to do something good for the country.
There are at least 12 learning issues identified from the above discussion. 1. How good is Najib's economic leadership to bring back the past glory of Malaysia as an Asian economic tiger? 2. How strong is Najib leadership to maintain multi-ethnic power sharing while Barisan Nasional is losing Chinese votes? 3. How good is Najib economic leadership to protect the country's economic sovereignty? And 4. How strong is Najib leadership to protect the country's sovereignty and security? That learning issues are for idea number 1. And for idea number 2, the learning issue is why Chinese deserting Barisan Nasional and supporting DAP. And learning issues for idea number 3, why BRIM is not effective. And learning issues for idea number 4. 1. Why don't Najib find more crucial factors such as studying past successes and failures to draw and maintain the support, the current situation in the country and the people's true problems? Number 2. Why don't Najib consider to look into internal leadership factors such as UMNO and the country's leadership, party's direction, money politics, corruption, people's standard of living, and etc. 3. What happened to 1MDB? And 4. Why Najib administration is being secrecy about 1MDB problems? 5. What is the connection between Najib's excessive borrowing and unwise spending through 1MDB and BRIM? And 6. Why UMNO leaders and members seem to ignore the party leadership crisis and its connection with other emerging issues such as 1MDB and other problems. 2014 is a fruitful year for Mahathir's problem-based leadership exploration. Based on his writings in the Check That web blog, as discussed previously, we could get a better understanding on the main focus of his analysis and learning on the country's leadership through the diagnostic process as shown previously. The table, the list shows that the connection between problem trigger and all diagnostic processes concluded with the action plan to learn further about one is about Najib's leadership, two is about race-based politics and its relevancy, and three, how to get the people to return their support for the ruling party, and four, other crucial factors such as UMNO and country's leadership in general, party's direction, money politics, corruption, people's standards of living, and cost of living, and etc. These four issues are among the most frequently discussed in his web blog from 2015 to May 2018. Our next discussion will show further how they were addressed by Dr. Mahathir throughout the Check That web blog writings. Najib loyalists might blame Dr. Mahathir's constant criticism on Najib's leadership as a personal attack and nothing more than a sign of the post-retirement syndrome. Unfortunately, they were all wrong. Analysis of his constant criticism since March 2013, after the 13th general election, clearly indicates that Dr. Mahathir was in a clear state of observing the whole situation of the country's leadership problems. By end of 2014, he had already discovered the general feature of the problems. 2015 is the year to discover more about the problems.